want us to sit or?
Yeah, you can say sitting.
Okay.
Some of us think better when we sit. I'm not sure why that is.
Okay. I don't know, I'm a stander, but that's okay, I'll sit. I had the opportunity to be asked to do some policy strategy for Boone Pickens' ideas. I'm not saying he has all the ideas, but American-made has a strong affiliation with whether or not our borders are secure and we're less dependent on foreign oil. Compressed natural gas is a product that comes from shale. This country has plenty of that. And the pipelines, the manufacturing, the refits, and the patents for engines that could run on liquid natural gas, LNG, is all there and coming together. Now, we could turn this economy very quickly around on a dime if we focus on alternative energy that makes sense. Now, some of you have seen the top-down management of windmills and how that doesn't seem to be working very effectively or efficiently in producing alternative energy. Some of you have seen the net effect on solar panels that the federal government is saying that you must equip your homes with. Top-down management telling you what to do with your private property again. It's a constitutionalist that's kind of like fingernails on a chalkboard. If we innovate alternative energy and embrace ideas like CNG and LNG, we could become another manufacturing powerhouse to get that done. There are other countries that have beat us to the punch. However, it would be an excellent way, not the only way, because we also need petroleum and we need other alternatives as well. We need to stick with the oil and gas as well. But it would be an excellent way to boost our economy. Not only, it is green, but that's a side effect. It's important because it would put new ideas to work. Truck engines, it would mean the world to get our transportation systems running more effectively, and it would mean the world to manufacturers to have a new product that we can win in the world again.
Terry, just a quick follow-up. How about nuclear? Would you support nuclear power plants?
I would. Nuclear is a clean energy. We obviously know the hazards over the last 50 years, and we have put a lot of research and development into nuclear. Anybody worked on a nuclear sub in here? There's a lot of Navy folks in northeast Wisconsin. But there's a lot of work that's been done with nuclear as well.
Thank you. Reed?
Yeah, you can, again, I've got a fairly lengthy position paper on my website on the whole energy policy in the country, but I think part of this is we have to recognize where energy is being used. You know, energy is being used mostly in our physical structures, in our buildings. We have a tendency to think in terms of vehicular traffic and its impact on carbon-based fuels like oil, but we have to look at the bigger picture of how our buildings are constructed, how they're insulated, how we're using natural light and fuel-efficient methods there if you really want to get around reducing demand or reducing costs on energy. But I'm a proponent of having the most comprehensive take on energy policy we possibly can. We ought to be expanding nuclear. We need to get at natural gas. We need to be looking at everything that we can to reduce demand on foreign oil that sometimes comes from countries that aren't so friendly to us. And this needs to happen, and it needs to happen quite aggressively.
Any yes or no questions out there? No presentations, just yes or no questions. Anybody got a yes or no questions out there? Okay, Bobby, let's wrap this up. Each of the presenters, let's do about 1 minute, and let's do, just do 2 minutes on the wrap-up. But I would like you, in your wrap-up, consider this. Give us your very brief position on Afghanistan. I mean, that's like giving a brief description of the Bible. You can't do that. But I'd really like to know what your position is on Afghanistan, what you think our role should be, and what we should be doing in the immediate term, and in the intermediate term, maybe long term. Let's go in reverse order. Terry?
As I mentioned throughout the forum, I said I was a constitutional Republican, which means I believe we need to declare war constitutionally before we go to war. I also said that I come from a military family, which means I'm going to support our troops, our military and veterans when they come home with every resource I think that they need, because they fought honorably in whatever capacity they were in for this country. Afghanistan, I believe we need a mission and objectives and goals. We've been in the Middle East fighting for about a decade. If we followed the Constitution, we would have 2 years, and we'd have funding for 2 years. And then we'd have to re-examine our strategy, and we'd be pulling our troops home. If we had declared constitutionally the war in Iraq, after the regime was toppled, our troops would have come home. Coming from from the family that I do, I mentioned that I have a niece and her son over in Afghanistan. So I'm very concerned about her safety and my grandnephew's safety on the ground as they're honorably serving this country. If we don't have a specific mission and objective, and we don't know it pretty soon, I think we should bring our troops home. However, and this is a big however, when they are there, they need to be fully equipped. They need to have every advantage that they can to protect their lives and the mission that they were entrusted with by their commander-in-chief. And while he is in the White House, he is our commander-in-chief. And we're going to need to support those troops no matter what. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Reed?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for hanging around here for almost 2 hours. I appreciate you all being here. What I do as a candidate only matters if people come to listen, and so I really appreciate the time that you've all taken to come out this morning. Afghanistan, there's been a lot of discussion in the press lately, comparisons to Vietnam and things like that. I don't buy the comparison, quite frankly. You know, the war in Vietnam was against a nation and an army, much more traditional type of war. The war in Afghanistan is not. In fact, the Afghani army is on our side, and we're training that army. And so this war is complicated because we're not fighting a war against a traditional type of enemy. And I'm cautious to as a congressman, to begin to legislate policy on how that war ought to be executed. We've asked our military to do a pretty difficult thing there. And then we've also asked them not to leave in such a way that a vacuum occurs that terrorism goes back to. And terrorism loves a vacuum. They work in shadows, they work in the dark, and they attack civilians. And so this is a different type of, very different type of war. But I will say this, that it gives me great pause that the President went public with a specific withdrawal timeline in Afghanistan. Once that timeline was established and once it was public, you empower an enemy to begin to attack your soldiers in small groups and kill them in 2s and 3s per week. And once that timeline went public, I would support a withdrawal from Afghanistan because we've now just empowered an enemy, and so I don't think that was good policy or good strategy. Thanks again for having me, and thanks again for spending so much time here. I know your concerns are valid, and I appreciate the questions. I appreciate the tone of the questions. This was an excellent morning, and thank you very much for your time. Bobby, thank you for hosting. Thank you for being such a great moderator. Thank you. And glad to be here. Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give these folks a hand. I'll tell you. We have a few other people in this room who are running for elected office, and running for elected office is really hard work, and you don't own your life for that year going up to that eventual election. There's such a relief having been through. There's such a relief on election day. Of course, you all want to win, but win, lose, or draw, it's a relief. But I give these people such great credit for putting themselves on the line, taking time out of their